Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new edition of the Lashing Out Podcast on Nittany Sports Now Network. My name is Jarrod Prugar, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Kevin Quigley. Kevin, Penn State won against FIU, Mr. Worldwide University, the 305. It was weird, but again, it was a win. They shut him out, and they're 2-0.
Yeah, they're 2-0. It's all that really matters. Early season performances, again, they don't have preseason. It kind of is what it is. They did win, although it was ugly. And I think this team has a lot to work on. I think a lot of the issues that were present last week were even more so present this week, where the offensive line should be able to bully people. We were talking early in the season or in the preseason about, this offensive line is their best position group. You have NFL scouts saying that this is their best position group. You need to be able to line up against Conference USA, Group of 5, FIU, and to be able to push them 3 to 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage every single down, especially if you are the number 2 team in the country and your offensive line is probably a top 5 unit in the country. You need to be able to come out and just bully them. And they did no sort of any resemblance of bullying the FIU defensive front.
No, they didn't. Now, I will give all the credit to Florida International. I think the Panthers played a really good game defensively. There were 62 yards after the catch, and a lot of that came on a Luke Reynolds pass or reception on his longest one, and then obviously Trevor Pena, he had 26 yards after the catch. But they did not let Kaytron Allen, Nicholas Singleton get any extra yards as best they could, and they played a really good game. But the offensive line, I think, is struggling right now because there's no continuity. They're rotating guys heavily, and that when you're not able to mesh and build, I think it's a little different. They are substituting heavily. They're just kind of going through the motions up front. But credit to FIU, they came out ready to play and ready to ball. It just so happened though that Penn State started slow. Drew Allard did not look himself. He has not been able to find a rhythm. Early against Nevada, they established the passing game. Against FIU, it was slick. They ended up running for 209 yards. Now, a chunk of that, 32% of that yardage came on Kaytron Allen's 67-yard touchdown pass or touchdown run. So, I mean, that kind of inflates the numbers. But here we are talking a 34-0 game, and there's still a lot left to be desired for Penn State. The offense hasn't fired on all cylinders yet. It will, but right now it hasn't done so, and that's kind of the cause for concern.
Yeah, and if you take away Kaytron's run, they had 142 yards on 30 carries. That's 4.7 yards a carry. It's not like they were mediocre. But I mean, it's just like Nick was 5.8 yards a carry. Like they were productive, but it wasn't assertive. And I think we have to look at the Andy Kotelnicki offense. And I think just his play calling strategy, it seemed like every first down in the first half was a run play. And if you're FIU and your opponent's tendency is 95 to 100% of the time, they're just going to line up and try to bully you on first down. Guess what you get to do 95 to 100% of the time on first down? You get to stack the box. And if your offensive line is playing quite frankly, like dog shit, you're not going to be able to run against a stack front. Like you need to do some counters. You need to do something else. And you need variety. If you watch any bit of other football, and granted, your offensive line needs to be functioning well to do this, the rest of the college games and the rest of the NFL games today, there are receivers open in space. There's yards after catch galore. There's crossing routes, and there's none of that. And I get it. They're trying to stay vanilla in this offense, but you need variety, and you need to pull back a couple more layers of the onions. And if your onion only has so many layers where this is as much as you can reveal without giving all of your cards, it's a little bit concerning. And I think last year this offense was really predictable. Granted, their wide receivers weren't as good as they are this year, but it's kind of being a trend for me now, and it's a little worrisome. And so I think I'd love to see almost a 50-50 pass throw, or a little bit of play action, or something to get the defense to where they're not putting 7, 8, 9 guys in the box every first down when your offensive line isn't really capable of doing that. And if you've got 5 against 7 or 6 against 7, the numbers don't work. So the game plan yesterday was to line up and bully them, and it didn't work well. And yeah, they pulled away late 34-0. Yeah, they got the win, but so much left to be desired.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing. Again, it's good that they won. And listen, winning is everything. They shut them out. We're going to talk defense in the second segment, but they're shutting teams out. They're really shutting teams down. And again, FIU was aggressive. They came out ready to ball, and they put 8 guys in the box and said, "Hey, we want you to beat us, and we want you to run it down our throat." And Penn State did at times, but there was just no offensive flow. They didn't have these long, surgical drives. The touchdown drive to Khalil Dinkins, I thought, did that. But the biggest problem for the offense is they were so bad on second and third downs. They didn't give themselves a chance to stay ahead of the chains, and that's the biggest problem that I saw on Saturday, is that they are just not helping themselves. Drew Aller missed a couple of things. Nicholas Singleton missed a run that had a great seam. He just kept running outside. If he cuts it up, it's probably 10, 15 yards, if not more. So, there's a lot of meat left on those bones. But again, a 34-0 win isn't anything to kind of scoff at or anything like that. But it is when you have you're leaving a lot left on the field. You look around the country, Florida lost to USF. The Bulls, they might be the best team in Florida. Clemson was struggling with Troy. WVU lost to Ohio. Penn State has been in that spot, and, early season action is a thing. But, you look around, LSU struggled with Louisiana Tech. Georgia struggled with Austin Peay. So you look at things where things could definitely be worse. You could be Florida, and that's not a position that Penn State ever wants to be in, where you're losing to USF or anything like that, especially at home.
Yeah, and it sounds like such a cop out, and I hate to use it, but like winning is the most important thing. And if you're the number 2 team in the land, sure, you want to put up Ohio State like numbers where you win 63-0 against Grambling. But FIU is a considerably better program than Grambling. Grambling is also at the FCS level. So there's more there, and I think we just have to take the positives out of it. Like, we can degrade them all we want, but like at the end of the day, this is their second game. This is the second time they've lined up for 60 minutes. And if they're rotating as much as they are, the objectives here are clear, right? Get as many players as you can experience, get as many players as you can reps, get as many offensive line combinations as you can, because quite frankly, like, somebody's going to roll an ankle, somebody's going to tweak a knee, or heaven forbid, torn bicep or something that's just a season-ending injury. Like, it's the offensive line. It's probably one of the most injury-prone positions in all of sports. So the experience is important, and I think 34-0 is dominant, though it didn't feel dominant.
No, but you look at the stat sheet. They put up 409 yards, 200 yards through the air, 200 yards, 209 yards on the ground. They dominated those aspects of it, other than, I think, time of possession, where Florida International just absolutely dominated that by almost 9 minutes, 10 minutes. But there's a lot to be happy with too. They had 9 tackles for loss. Again, we'll talk about defense a little bit more, but you're averaging 6.7 yards a rush, 10.5 yards of completion, 6.4 yards of play. You're 4 for 4 in the red zone. It's just one of those situations where, yes, there are good things, but there are also some bad things too that you need to get cleaned up. And Villanova is not going to be it needs to be the place where you clean those up. Then you go into the bye, and then boom, it's Oregon, and Oregon's been putting up some serious points as well, and that's something that you gotta account for.
And if we're gonna say bad things about Drew missing that throw to Nick Singleton, we gotta say good things about that touchdown toss to Devontae Ross.
Yeah.
That was immaculate. And then like the touch to get to Khalil Dinkins, right? That was over 1 or 2 defenders, really long developing play. The touch there. So there's good things and there's bad things. It's just early season rust. It's just frustrating that they're 43-point favorites, I think, by Vegas. That's not everything, as we've seen in the NFL and we've seen in college yesterday. But you just hope that like with the national title aspiration, sure, that's a label we've put on them, but you just want it to be, you're expecting it to be more polished. And you know what? If your bad games against FIU on September 6th, it's better than dropping a doozy in, at Purdue or something like that, like Ohio State did a couple of years ago, where they just got steamrolled by the Boilermakers. So, if your bad games against FIU and it's still a shutout win, like it's
if a bad game is a 34-0 shutout, sign me up 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
That's where it needs to be. But for right now, Penn State's 2-0. They're number 2 in the country. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that stout defense when we come back. The second segment on the Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the second segment of the Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. He's Kevin. I'm Jarrod. Kevin, blink. And, Penn State probably got a turnover from the defensive line. Penn State's defense looked great against Florida International. They just absolutely dominated in every facet of the game. And that's exactly what you need from a defense. They primarily line up in a 4-3, which is different than, the 4-2-5. So, I mean, they're, you want to talk about putting stuff on tape so that, you have to make teams think. You run a 4-2-5 against Nevada. You're running a 4-3 against Florida International, and you're even more dominant, right? I mean, it's a sight to behold. This Penn State and this defense absolutely just steamrolls over teams. But the young guys were the most impressive ones yesterday or on Saturday. And I think that's a really big step forward for Penn State as they develop depth throughout the season.
Yeah, I think anytime that 2 games in and you have 2 defensive tackle interceptions, awesome.
That's more than the secondary, by the way.
Yeah, the secondary has none. The linebackers have none, and your defensive line has 2. So, great. That's what you want to see, because the interceptions are going to come on the back end. If you can start getting them from your defensive line, guys are getting their hands up. Anytime that's fundamentals right there. Get your hands up in passing lanes, like that stuff that translates from week to week, and that's just great coaching. The fact that they've gotten 2 interceptions out of it, hey, even better. Zariah Fisher was healthy, and he made an impact early. You're not a young guy by any means, but not a lot of experience just because he's been hurt. And then Chaz Coleman, man, welcome to the scene. It was the Denine and Sutton show last week, and it was the Chaz Coleman show in the second half. 4 tackles, 1 sack, 2 for loss, a pass breakup, and a QB hurry, and the forced fumble. And I think on the pass breakup was just a massive play. He was the right side defensive end. The quarterback rolled out, lights out, rolled out to the offense's right. Chaz broke off of his pass rush and dropped and kind of ran like he ran not necessarily parallel to the line, but he was dropping into coverage, trying to cut off the running lane for the quarterback, but also to just pick up another zone on defense. And he got right in the throwing lane and was able to break it up. So really high IQ. He saw that, and that's a true freshman that's making that play. So
not even just a true freshman, but this dude didn't even enroll until the summer. He did not enroll. He was not an early enrollee. He got there right after his, he just got there for camp. And that's insane that he's having this level of impact. And he's only going to continue to get better.
Yeah, it's we thought maybe Denai was the next one. He is, but who's the next one behind Denai? It might be Chaz. And if we have 3 seasons of a guy that's going to get better from that, oh my gosh, who knows how high of a draft pick he can be or how dominant he can be at the college level. So really cool to see. I think King Mack had a good game on the back end as well. I think, he got a little bit more reps on the defensive side versus special teams this week. And he was present, which is, if you start noticing safeties and they're coming down in. And I also thought Rojas had a good game as well. Maybe didn't have the best game against Nevada, but I think he took a big step forward, led the team in tackles this week. So, yeah. And then Dom DeLuca gets the punt block at special teams, but FIU couldn't do anything. It looked like they could run a little bit. It was kind of surprising how much their quarterback ran because let's see, how many carries did he have? He had 4 carries, but it felt like it was more.
It didn't feel like a lot more.
I mean, they ran the RPO, but he usually like he was doing a lot of read option versus more just RPO. So, you know, credit they did well.
They did, and Chas Coleman's strip sack was absolutely beautiful. I mean, it just seemed like it was going in slow motion, and then obviously he doesn't get in the end zone. Like if he goes in the end zone there, I think it's going to be even that much more impressive. I mean, he got tackled at the 5, but I mean, anytime you're able to get that, Xavier Gilliam had a great game up front. When your defensive tackles are just absolutely being disruptive. Zariah Fisher was a guy like that, and Zane Durant had a disruptive game, and they might not. And defensive tackles aren't always going to end up on the stat sheet. But if they're able to get their hands in passing lane, and Jenkins' arm slot as a lefty was very low. It was more like a 3/4 slot, like if you want to go into like a baseball type of term. And they got so many hands, on those balls. It's crazy. There are 4 different pass breakups, and only 2 were really by people in the secondary. So I mean, yeah, you're getting these opportunities for these guys to make plays. Rojas looked good. Campbell looked good. Amari Campbell has been a stud. He was probably the best pickup they can get on the defensive side of the ball. He's been absolutely great. Khalil Dinkins, or not
Colin
Dinkins, but too many Ks. But you're able to get that depth, and you're getting 5, 6, 7 guys that are performing very well, and you're not even getting to the secondary, and I think that's good. Alonzo Ford had that pick too. We didn't even talk about him, but I mean, it's just guy after guy after guy. They're just so deep up front, and it's just paying huge dividends. I mean, again, FIU just could not do anything. They ran 72 plays and averaged 4 yards a play. 3.6 yards a rush is tough. They made their bread and butter really on third down. They were 6 for 18, which isn't good, but for FIU, able, sustaining drives. They were 3 for 5 on fourth downs, which extended some of those drives as well. But I mean, 140 yards, 141 yards in the ground, 149 yards through the air. I mean, and they really didn't come close or felt like they were ever threatening to score.
No, and I think probably the best play, just to mention it, just because we haven't, the Zaki Wheatley pass breakup. TV didn't really credit him, and I think the stadium didn't really show the replay for it because a lot of the action from the beat reporters on Twitter was that he had dropped it. The FIU wide receiver dropped it, but Zaki got his hand right on the ball. And that's a play that goes for a 1st and goal on the 3, and I think that was like 3rd or 4th down. Like it was late in the sticks. Like very impressive play, and just I mean he's a safety, right? Like Zaki is not a corner, he's a safety. So to be able to make that recovery and to have the ball skills to just right there, just that was probably the best play. And I don't think if you attended the game, I don't think that play got the justice that it deserves. So.
No, absolutely right. But again, Penn State's playing a dominant brand of football. It's 2 games in a row. Granted, it's Nevada and FIU, but we'll see what happens against Villanova. And really, that's not going to be a big test. But come September 26th in Oregon, that's when that defense, we're going to find out what they're all about.
Yeah, for sure. And Villanova is an FCS opponent. They are a ranked FCS opponent, but again, it is at the FCS level, and I'm just hoping that maybe we go with 1 or 2 offensive line units instead of rotating guys as much, and like really start building some chemistry and just prove that you can dominate. And you don't want to put everything out there, but you need the 5 guys that are going to line up against Oregon 2 weeks after that to be in line and ready to go. So kind of what we're hoping for, but that's for later in the week.
Sorry, we'll talk about that and more later in the week, but we're going to talk a little bit more about some things in the third and final segment of the Lasching Out Podcast after this quick break. Welcome back to the third and final segment of the Lasching Out Podcast and Nittany Sports Now Network. I'm Jarrod. He's Kevin. Kevin, we talked about in the first segment, Penn State won. That's not what we can say about a lot of other teams throughout the top 25 on Saturday. And that's why winning is so important. It's not a guarantee, even early in the season as everybody's schedules kind of fluctuate, whether it's a big game, a little game, or something that's in between.
Yeah. Texas, San Jose State, that was one of the early window games. San Jose State just shot themselves in the foot. 4 turnovers. I think 2 or 3 of them came early, and pretty much all of Texas's early points came off of turnovers there. So Arch looked all right, 4 touchdown tosses on the day, but still not looking like a Heisman Trophy front runner, if you ask me. But yeah, you mentioned it. Clemson, Troy had a lead there for a bit, especially coming out of the 2-hour thunderstorm break that happened there. So yeah, Clemson just doesn't look fantastic. Their offense is who we thought it, or who I thought it was. I don't think Cade Klubnik is really even in the top 10 voting of Heisman right now. And
he was supposed to be. He was supposed to be the next big thing. And that's the thing, right? Like, you're struggling with Troy. South Carolina put up 38. Illinois handled Duke after struggling for a little bit early.
Duke,
Mississippi State,
I think Duke had fine. Duke, that score is not as indicative of how close it was. Duke had 5 turnovers, and credit to the Illini defense for forcing 5 turnovers, but man, Duke stunk on ice, and I think they had a legitimate shot to win. They just anytime they got a momentum, anytime they got within one possession, turnover, just it was disgusting. It was disgusting.
Right, and then you have Arizona State lost to Mississippi State, right? And they made a big deal about the cowbells at practice. Mississippi State goes in and beats Arizona State, and no, let's be real. Arizona State is not a college football playoff team, in my opinion. They lost way too much last year, and that's okay. They had their big year, but I just don't see that. I didn't expect that. But they're comically overrated, just like most of the teams in the top 25 to start the season. South Florida goes in and handles business against Florida because Florida loves to do something stupid at the end of every game. Like a couple years ago, they had the cleat throw. Now they had the guy spitting on another guy. Just pull yourselves together. It's not hard. Michigan loses to Oklahoma. That's probably the biggest game. That was a big game, 18 versus 15. But they went into, to Boomer Sooner and did not play well. That offense for Michigan was not good. Mateer was great for Oklahoma. But, that Michigan team, they're not that good.
No, I think hold on, just go back. USF, I did call them my group of 5 representative on the pregame show last week. A little bit of technical difficulties getting that posted on podcasting platforms, but do want to say props to me, pat myself on the back. We're on a show here, but I'm going to tell you when I was right. USF goes into the swamp. Oh, seeing all those people in the swamp just sad and dejected was awesome. I really can't stand Florida. I don't know what it is about Florida. I can't stand them. Just the sadness in the stands was awesome. But no, Michigan, Oklahoma, Bryce Underwood had 9 for 24. I think his QBR was in the low 40s. They just didn't get anything going. And I think Oklahoma, we weren't overly impressive, but that's John Mateer's first time playing against a Michigan caliber opponent. He came from Washington State. You're not playing.
Michigan's defense is legit.
Yeah, their defense is legit. So for him to have that, for him to have that kind of performance and, to win the game, quite frankly, is good. But Bryce Underwood didn't look good. And, he's a true freshman and he's going to Norman, Oklahoma in a night game of the week, big environment, game days there, all of the stuff around that game. I think it's valuable experience for him. Maybe he didn't play as well as he wanted to, or he probably didn't play as well as he wanted to, but, for Michigan to lose, kind of saw it coming, but Michigan's just not who we thought they were. Well, Michigan's not who the media thought they were. So,
right. That's the thing. It's these early season games. We just really have no idea what's going to happen, and that's why preseason rankings are stupid, but they're necessary because it gives us something to talk about every week, right? Is Penn State the number 2 country and the number 2 team in the country? I don't know. Is Ohio State the number 1 team in the country? I don't know.
So. I think so.
They're probably up there, but that's also because they haven't given us a reason to not think that they were coming off a national championship, right? Yeah. LSU, are they the number 3 team in the country? No. I don't think so. Georgia, number 4. It is what it is. right? But the biggest thing that Penn State can go and do is win. As long as they keep winning, to take a spin off of Finding Nemo, right? And Dory, just keep swimming, just keep winning, and that's all you got to do. That's all Penn State has to do. Just keep winning. It doesn't matter what it looks like. A win is a win is a win. Just keep doing that. And if you're able to do that 11, 12 times this year in a regular season, you're going to get exactly where you want to go.
Yeah, I think the messaging is clear. Just win, go 12-0, go 11-1, whatever it is. You just need to win every week. And I hate being all cliche about it. They're gonna have bumps in the road, and they got it. Iowa looked awful against Iowa State. That was a messy game. It got close late.
16-13 is a woof.
Yeah, and then Baylor SMU. Baylor goes into Southern Methodist in Dallas, Texas, and wins in double OT. So it's probably a game SMU probably should have won. But a Big 12 going into SMU, into an ACC school. You love to see the Power 5 conference matchups. Wish Penn State had one.
Should have been Virginia Tech.
They did. Oh, man.
And they lost to Vandy.
Oh. So I'm keeping a close eye on Virginia Tech. Live in Virginia. I got a lot of friends that went to Virginia Tech, are big Virginia Tech people. So I kept a close eye on that game. Holy cow, was that bad? Like the first half was like, all right, Virginia Tech's got a chance. And then I think they had like 5 yards. I'm exaggerating, but they had probably 5 yards of offense in the second half. Like Vanderbilt turned on the Jets. And I think Vanderbilt's a good team. Like I think last year they gained a lot of momentum. This year, I think they're continuing that with Diego Pavia at the helm. Somehow not ranked. You would think a performance like that would get them ranked, but is what it is. USF got into the rankings at 18th. Missouri, they were down early, down early.
The Bow Show
against Kansas, and then came back from that. So I think it was like 20-0 or something like that. Like it was lopsided early, and it was like, what's going on here? It's 21-6 at the end of the first quarter. So, yeah, it was worrisome around. My guy Jalen Daniels for Kansas still there. Not sure how.
Hey, such is life, man. But again, it's as simple as winning, and that's what Penn State did. It wasn't totally pretty. Special teams was really good. Gabe Nwosu has an absolute cannon for a leg. Like that
67-yard punt.
Watching that punt where we're at now in the press box, because we're in the third level of the suite. So what they did is they condensed the president's suite from being 100 yards to now only like 60 or 70 yards. So we're in the end zone, the northeast end zone, and we're 3 levels up. And it is not a fun time if you're scared of heights, but you get to see balls and stuff fly. And watching his punt was it was a boomer, and it was great. The 67-yarder. And that was like, it's some big time power out of a dude that's, 6'3", 299.
Yeah, he's a big guy. So, yeah, it was a cool thing to see. Although the announcers couldn't calculate it correctly, they just kept saying 72. 72 would have been even better, but it was 67 yards. So math is tough.
Words are hard. Math is harder. Kevin, any parting shots?
Yeah, TV direction. TV direction has been terrible this week. Just across all of everything, from Formula One, like Max Verstappen's going for pole, and we're looking inside at people at the McLaren garage. For the Penn State game, Big Ten Network, like really wanted to get in commercials and features and all the stuff that they prepared in the week leading up. And I get it. The production team wants to show that stuff, but we missed like on TV 3 or 4 plays to start the drives, or, coming out of break, coming out of timeouts. Like, it's just awful. Like, we're there to watch the football game. We're not there to watch the production stuff. And it's like, it's additive at times, but when you're taking away from the game itself, like, it's just awful. And I think we need to do better. Like, we missed the 2-point conversion last week on TV. Like, really didn't know what was going on. Like, it's random stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, like you're mailing it in for an extra point, but then they do something crazy, but you've already mailed it in. Like the ship has already sailed. So, hopefully they do a little bit better than that. They've spent all this money for all these contracts, and then they put a worse product out on the airwaves. So kind of frustrating as somebody who watches a lot of football on TV.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This weekend is probably the most I've been able to watch football in a while, with it being a noon kick. Finally coming home, I threw on the multicast, and that was a thing of beauty. And then I'm trying to stay away from the NFL since my team has already lost this weekend. Um, but yeah, I
Mike
mean,
could look good. Mike could look good this weekend. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
it's
Sorry.
good for my fantasy team, so I'll take it. But yeah, production value matters. What it looks like the presentation matters. Fortunately for me, I don't necessarily get to see that during the game. Only when I rewatch it, and by then, I'm trying to fast forward and go through all that fun stuff. But it's a new week. We're taking on, Villanova. I personally hate Villanova for a lot of reasons, mainly because of Robert Morris basketball in the NCAA tournament. They broke my heart multiple times, or once there, and then obviously in the national title game a couple years ago. Not a couple anymore, but about 10 years ago, whatever, against North Carolina with the last second shot. So hopefully Penn State hangs about 85 on them. I know it's not the basketball team, but that's where we're at with that on my end at least.
Hell, I'd kill for the Penn State basketball team to be able to score 85 points. But
well, beggars can't be choosers, Kevin.
That's for later in the season.
We'll talk more about Penn State and Villanova as they take on yet another cat for the third game in a row, or different type of animal that is like one. For Kevin Quigley, this has been Jarrod Prugar. We'll talk to you again next week or later this week on the Lasching Out Podcast and the Nittany Sports Now Network. Thank you as always for listening.